So how's everybody doing today? I am Joe Evans. I am your first congressional candidate, Libertarian, uh, for Idaho. Welcome to the show, Cup of Joe with Joe. Thank you for joining me. Let's go ahead and get some of the business out of the way. All of that fun stuff. Please like, share, comment, contribute to my campaign. Help me get elected to work for you, because that's what I want to do. I want to make sure you get the best representation possible you can get and the best active ungovernance the Congress can provide. So, how is everybody doing tonight? How are you? Go ahead and join me. Say hello. Now, we got a couple different things going on. Again, I always sort of have to start with current events. We got earthquakes in Idaho. Big ones. Picked up a 4.4 today up in central Idaho. A little rocking and rolling today. It's been sort of fun. Don't feel it too much in Boise. A little bit of quiver every so often. And that was after our big storm that we had yesterday. So, definitely. Mid-September, we're going into some interesting times. Really interesting. One of the other things we got going on is Greg Pruitt is out and about again. He's got another installation on his Don't Tread on Idaho tour. It's going to be happening in Meridian today. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, now Greg Pruitt is one of our Second Amendment Alliance individuals. He is executive director. He does an awful lot of activism in the state of Idaho, especially with regards to Second Amendment rights. However, his Don't Tread on Idaho tour really has very little to do. Well, it kind of does, but in a residual way. Reason why is because Greg's got two things he's trying to make happen right now. One is citizen journalism. He's doing a big push to try and make sure that, just as we have a citizens militia, the ability to call up via the Second Amendment, the militia, in order to maintain a well-regulated militia, the right to, anyway, the drill, Second Amendment. Well, he's come up with another idea, and this is citizen journalism. This is the ability to go out and, as a citizen, with a cell phone, any place, anytime, be able to go out and make news. Not like what I'm doing right now, because this is a commentary. This is an opinion piece. I'll go out and actually make the news later when I go out to video Greg's presentation here in about 30 minutes. 27. But the other thing he's got going with his Don't Tread on Idaho is our ballot initiative. Now, for those of you who aren't very familiar, Idaho is probably like about 6th or 7th most difficult state to get a ballot initiative through. And that's of the states that actually have ballot initiatives, citizens initiatives within our ability to get things on the ballot. We aren't as bad as California. This year, we tried to get 3 on. There were 3 active ones trying to get on the ballot. One was medical marijuana in the state of Idaho. Another was school funding, reinstitute a tax that our legislators removed about 2 years ago, 4 years, somewhere around there. Supposed to be a temporary removal in order to boost the economy here in the state, but our legislature removed that tax. So Reclaim Idaho is in the process of trying to get that tax put back in place, and that the revenue from those taxes would go to Idaho schools. And then we also had a third ballot initiative. This was the minimum wage in the state of Idaho. The fight for 15, well, they didn't actually go for that here in the state of Idaho. The initiative they tried for that one was for 12 over the next 4 years. So basically, go ahead and bump it up to 8, first July 1st, and then a year later it'd be 9, and then 10 and 11. And so this would be a graduated increase over the next couple of years. And they only fought for 12, raise the minimum wage to $12 an hour rather than going for the full 15. I think that was a fairly good idea, especially considering the relatively low cost of living here in Idaho. We don't need the full $15 an hour, or at least we didn't. Not until COVID hit, and all of a sudden, everybody's out of work, and we still have housing prices going up in cost. This is going to be interesting here. We have an awful lot of legislation in the state of Idaho that is very pro homeowner, pro landowner. So the property management organizations have a definitive advantage with regards to rental properties in the state. And it's particularly bad within Boise City limits. Reason why is because about half of the population of Boise City rent. Yes, they rent. So what happens when half of a city's population can't work and they rent? Now all of a sudden half of the property management companies in the valley can't evict the people who can no longer pay the rent because there's an executive agency out of Washington, D.C. that has said, no more evictions, at least not till January 1st. So that's going to be an interesting situation as we come up. Come on. Like, share, comment. Let me know what you're thinking. What do you want to hear my views on? Let me know what interests you, what it is you want to see happen over the next couple of years. What you want me to do for you in Congress. Please tell me. Let me know. Definitely kind of go with an Ask Me Anything format here. So, like I said, stop by. Going to be that citizen journalist a little bit later on once I head over to see how Greg's doing with his latest installation. Crash that party. Yes. Couple other things that popped up in the news recently. We got an article coming from northern Idaho. This is about the Redoubt. This is about our Christian identity militias that have decided to make themselves known again up in northern Idaho. There's an awful lot of people that aren't particularly fond of the way they're doing business up there. Now, well, most of us agree everybody has a God-given right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as well as self-defense of life, liberty, and property. And to that end, Idaho actually has right to bear arms as part of its constitution, specifically for the purpose of self-defense, not just to overthrow tyranny. If the government ever becomes tyrannical, truly tyrannical, not just an extended wear your mask thing, but actually invading your home, things like, I don't know, civil assets forfeiture, arresting you for the things you want to smoke. If the government were ever to become tyrannical like that. No. Right to self-defense. Absolutely part of the Idaho Constitution. And let's go ahead and talk about that again. I know I covered it yesterday. Right to self-defense. Right to defense of life, liberty, property, whether it's your own or whether it's another individual's. These are things that are essential basic human rights. As a libertarian, dude, I know damn well that the police, when you call them on 911, definitely do not show up on time. Hey, Staniela, yes. Definitely, we advocate for small business. How do we propose the states handle having to recreate all of the federal agencies that would be abolished or defunded by a libertarian platform? State taxes have to rise to account for the excess spending by state governments. How do you envision that going? Damn good question. Let's go ahead and shrink that down because now you can't see my beautiful shining face. But yes, Staniela. Staniela, thanks for coming on. Staniela was actually would have been one of my opponents for the general election coming up in November had she won the primary against Rudy Soto. So having her input, thank you, appreciate that. So local governance. How do we do the decentralization and push all of the capabilities of the federal government down to the local government so that we continue to maintain those social services that people have become accustomed to? You know, such as, well, one, the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. The states already have a version of that down at the lowest level. It's called the Department of Environmental Quality. So we go down, and now the Department of Environmental Quality, rather than having to adhere to this overreaching governing body that's back in Washington, D.C., that doesn't understand the peculiarities of dealing with our environmental issues here in the state of Idaho, now we're no longer answerable to them. We actually have the ability through our Department of Environmental Quality to continue to handle that. That's pretty much the same way with each and every one of the subordinate organizations. Department of Education, okay, that's a federal agency. It's one I have a particular issue with because back in 1979, when Jimmy Carter created the cabinet position and the Department of Education, you know, through Congress, because it is an executive agency, you know, since 1980, it's 40 years now, 40. For the last 40 years, education performance has continued to deteriorate across the United States. You know, we currently have to send students, college students, to remedial training, College 095, you know, in order to, and that's a free course, you know, they have to pay the college to take that course, even though those credits will never count towards their graduation. You know, and Idaho's not the only one with that problem. That's a problem all across the United States. Continuing deterioration of the public schools across the United States. But we already have a state superintendent of schools. We already have an organization for overseeing state curriculums. You know, almost every one of those federal agencies that the Libertarian Party would see dissolved at the federal agency already exists or has a mirror image of itself at the state levels. Department of Interior. Our Idaho Department of Fish and Game is a subset of the Department of Interior. It also works closely with the Idaho Bureau of Land Management. So again, we have all of these exact federal agencies that we would dissolve existing within the states. Now, yes, absolutely, we would have to step up some of those, add resources to some of those, simply because we no longer have that higher architect, you know, that higher stage in the architecture overseeing and providing guidance, albeit, you know, misinformed guidance in a lot of cases. I mean, take a look at fire season right now. Sierra Club, some 40 years ago, was involved in creating the environmental policies that have created the situation that's going on in northern Idaho right now. We have environmental policies that were based on faulty science, bad science, science that has since been corrected. But the policies that were put in by the Sierra Club way back when, you know, they're effectively written in stone. And the process of trying to change them these days in order to implement new environmental policies based on new discoveries in science, based on new understandings of environmental effects, you know, long-term effects, It's nearly impossible to go in and undo those because of the way things have happened, especially with organizations like the Department of Interior and the EPA and the way they were embedded into those organizations when they were created. So if we can go in, do that, that allows Idaho's Department of Fish and Game, Idaho's Bureau of Land Management, Idaho Parks to go in and work with industries. And here's the problem. Okay. I love my public land. Most Idahoans do love their public lands. Reason why is because we like to go out and hunt. Whether it's Bureau of Land Management land that the ranchers go out and, it's multi-purpose land. BLM land, it's all multi-purpose. So you can go out, lease the land so that you can graze your livestock out on it, bring your livestock in during hunting season because that's multi-purpose land. People can go out on that land. It's part of the commons. They can hunt. And, back in years past, we always had problems with visiting hunters that would come in, get tickets for game, go out on the BLM land, and shoot livestock because they thought a cow was a deer. But this is all multi-use land. Idahoans, we love our multi-use land. We go hiking on it. We go hunting on it. Everybody's got their own favorite hunting spot that about 30 other people also know about. But we love our public lands. So the idea of going in and privatizing it, which is a very libertarian platform. We take a look at what's going on with the Wilkes brothers right now. Wilkes brothers have gone in and purchased an awful lot of land that was originally offered to the state of Idaho. I mean, thousands of miles, square miles of wilderness land. Currently owned by the Wilkes brothers, could have been bought by the state of Idaho, for pennies on the dollar. And, the Wilkes brothers, they went in, started looking at subdividing it, put up fences on gates on easements, things that we should have been able to use those roads because they've been used for, 50, 60 years. People have been using those roads to get into the interior. And now the Wilkes brothers have gated it all off. And we've created a felony trespassing law, that allows people to shoot people for walking on what used to be an easement, used to be a causeway. So privatization, most of us are beginning to recognize the privatization of our wilderness lands is not a good idea. Even from a libertarian Idahoans, it's the commons. We want to go up. We want to be able to do the rafting on the river. Our rivers, part of the commons. We're never going to be able to privatize those. The forests that they originate in, we can't privatize those because of the way it affects. Now, that's one of those areas where me as an Idaho libertarian, I tend to run at a little bit of odds with the national platform of, hey, privatize it, take it out of the government's hands. I mean, definitely, if we could find a way to localize it, manage it locally, work with ecotourism. I mean, it's one of the big industries here in Idaho, believe it or not, ecotourism. We can actually set it up so the state can continue to profit as well as the small businesses that operate along the tour lines. We got kayakers, outfitters, all do good things. But yeah, all of this, yes. Keep me on task, Daniela. I need to definitely. But yeah, every one of those organizations that exist at the federal level, there's a mirror on it. Child Protective Services, our Department of Health and Welfare, United States Department of Health and Welfare, which is actually subordinate to the Department of Agriculture because of SNAP programs, food stamps. All of that comes through the Department of Agriculture. So we have all of these structures that continue to exist. We even have, God, and I hate to say this, Bureau of Indian Affairs. Every one of the states has a subordinate organization that works with the reservations that exist within state boundaries. Idaho has a team, an organization where we have appointed individuals within the state government that work in helping develop relationships as well as ways to work with what's going on, on the reservations. So even as organizations that are outdated and damaging, such as Bureau of Indian Affairs, which is subordinate to Department of Interior, I believe. States continue to work on those relationships as well with subordinate organizations. Funding. Well, once we stop paying the federal government to babysit us, and we start opening up lateral communications, what works in one state well, what works in another state well, how can we adapt it to the environment that is specifically Idaho? Where is Oregon screwing up? Let's not do what Oregon did. What is California screwing up? Let's not do what California did. Open up those lateral communications rather than running things all the way up to Washington, just so Washington can decide whether or not we can implement a slightly different plan here in Boise. I believe they'll create more efficiency, more effectiveness here at the local government, at the state government. Now, the great part about that, become involved, man. Become involved. The reason why is because if we dissolve all of those organizations and all of those agencies at the federal level, that means your state legislatures all of a sudden have near infinitely more power over what happens in your state on specific issues. And we've all seen what's happened in Idaho. We have turned deep red, and I'm not talking like the red of a conservative Democrat like Cecil Andrus or Frank Church. I'm talking, way off the right end. See an awful lot of those people in our legislature. People who say liberty, 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 but liberty is very limited by what they define liberty as. It's the liberty for me, but not for the philosophy of certain legislators who say you can do all the things you want as long as you do it the way I want you to do it. It's not really the libertarian platform, guys. I mean, I hate to tell you that, but it isn't. The libertarian platform is very much about liberty for me and liberty for thee. Okay. I think there are some laws and regulations that definitely should be consistent. It's one of the reasons why our founding fathers created the Constitution, created the Bill of Rights. That way there are certain things that are constitutional across the entirety of the United States. If you own a weapon and you're not a criminal, you should be able to carry said weapon anywhere you go. But beyond that, it starts getting a little bit more problematic because, come on, let's face it, Staniela. The culture of Idaho is not the culture of Southern California. It's not the culture of the I-5 corridor in Oregon or Washington. So trying to say that the urban areas need to have as limited laws as what are practiced in our rural areas. And let's face it, most people in Emmett don't need a law telling them not to crap in the street. Whereas we are currently discovering that there are an awful lot of urban areas that do specifically need a law that says, it's going to be a misdemeanor if you drop trowel and litter the street with feces. So it's one of those things. I do not think that they should be consistent. And in a lot of ways, I actually advise that they not be consistent. This is one of the problems we're having with ALEC right now. ALEC comes in. They're currently trying to create blueprints in every state by having the exact same law passed in all 50 states. Okay, the reason why this is particularly dangerous is because now the same legal team that made something happen very pro-corporate in California can come in and have the exact same blueprint for the attack against communities in Idaho, for the attack against communities in Ohio. for the attack against communities in Louisiana. So it's one of those, I definitely think that the laws and the legislation should be based on the individual standards of the community. Those things, yeah, it's one problem. Dallas managed to keep an oil welling platform out of downtown Dallas. Reason why is because the plan involved going in and drilling a well basically into the water table. It's created by one of the rivers that was flowing through the area. At some point, there was actually legislation that was passed in Dallas, and it was only passed in Dallas because it was Dallas specific. Local environmental lawyers were able to shut down the platform because the corporation didn't know that they couldn't dig through that specific area because of legislation that was created. So like one of the problems we have right now, Suez Water. No, it's not Suez Water. Water treatment facility down here in Boise is currently working on trying to renew an old contract with one of our canal districts to basically slough off all of the extra waste and effluent from the water treatment facility that the water treatment facility itself can't manage into the canals. Okay, our EPA and our DEQ say, no, you can't put it back into the river if it's at such a high level. However, we have regulations, but that's just our rivers. That's our natural. For some reason, because of the way our regulations have been set up, yes, total paradigm shift. Yeah, so the way our regulations are set up is we can dispose of that waste into canals. Now, that's as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than actually dumping it into the river. Reason why is because those canals continue to provide irrigation water to communities all over the Treasure Valley. So now you are taking all of this effluent from the water treatment facility, which processes feces, all types of bacteria, and an awful lot of people continue to use those canals for recreation. They swim in them. And now you got E. coli and other things that just find their way into, and now it's coming straight from a water treatment facility. Human feces is now in the water canal, that 3 weeks before the kids were swimming in. So it's things like that. It's things like that that create local policies. As those local policies that keep the environment clean, that keep the environment safe. And when you create a standard blueprint all across the United States, that creates the blueprint for major national and international corporations to come in and exploit that blueprint for things like, now what is it we call it when eminent domain. They can exploit local laws, local legislation. They can exploit local eminent domain policies because they got this legislation passed that is now universal all across the United States for local governing bodies. It's like, yeah. So I think ideas and concepts, the spirit of the law, should be important. Letter of the law, I definitely believe needs to be local. It needs to have the local interpretation, the local understanding. That way we don't end up with blanket policies that continue to affect and hurt local communities coming out of, federal policies or nationalized policies through. But yeah, so my answer, no. I don't think the laws and regulations should be consistent between all 50 states. Few of them, don't kill, don't rape, don't murder. Yeah, absolutely, those should be consistent. There are some basics. You should be able to defend yourself as a layman. In that, I think law should be readable by anybody with a high school degree. You shouldn't have to be a lawyer to interpret law. Yeah, that's me. One of the things I hate about lawyers in politics is lawyers like to stick in all the legal jargon that everybody else is looking at and going, okay, how many years of case law on this issue do I have to study to understand why they said that the way they said it? I do believe in that. I believe laws and regulations should be able to be read and understood by laymen. Okay, that's my 30 minutes, folks. Love ya. Appreciate ya. Donate to my campaign. Like, love, share. Let your friends know about me. Idaho Joe for Congress, 1st Congressional District. And I'll probably stop by the garden a little bit later so you guys can get a vision of me as the garden gnome. Take care. Family, friends, community. That's what keeps us going, guys. Love ya.